Hello and welcome friends. In Marketing of Services Unit 2, in the last session, the first session that we had, we talked about the different types of buying behavior which we see there in the market, and we have also understood what are the different buying rules which are performed by different individuals in a family, right? And we also said that there are some buying rules which we have not discussed here. Fine. Now let us talk about the purchase decision making in a little detail. And if you recall, I told you that I'll be dealing with complex buying behavior in a little detail, and I'll be telling you how customers actually display this complex buying behavior. So let me move on to the next slide, and let me tell you that purchase decision making which I'll be teaching you would be from the perspective of a complex buying behavior. I hope you remember what we meant by complex buying behavior: high involvement situation and significant differences between the brand, which means the brand is very important to you because you might have to spend a lot of time or money to purchase that particular brand, or it may have implications for your image among the public, or it may impact your parents a lot or your close ones a lot. For example, which particular individual to get married to, a decision which might impact your parent a lot. So such situations where there is a lot of involvement of the customer and when there is a lot of difference between the brands also. Had there been no difference, you would have probably gone for dissonance reducing purchase behavior, which you have discussed in the last session. But since there is a lot of difference, what do you do? You go for a complex buying behavior. And what we mean by complex buying behavior, as I said in the last session also, you would devote considerable time in comparing different brands, and then only once you are assured, then only you decide to purchase a particular brand. Fine. So it's not as if you go to a market one fine day and decide that I need to purchase this particular product. It's not like that. It requires a lot of time and energy cost, and you have to devote a lot of your thoughts, which is the psychic cost, before you arrive at a decision as to which particular brand to purchase. Fine. Now these are the various steps in the purchase decision making. The first step is the problem recognition, second is information search, third is evaluation of alternatives, then fourth one is purchase decision, and the fifth one is post purchase behavior. Right? I hope you remember that you have studied all these things already in marketing management, so I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. So problem recognition is when you feel there is a need to buy something, right? Another term for this is need recognition. When you start feeling that, okay, I need to purchase this, fine. Then information searches. You look for information wherever it is available. It could be available in different places. It could be with your friends or relatives also. So you try to gather as much information about all the brands which are there in the market, and once you have all the information, now you can make a comparison of different brands which are there in the market. That is step number 3. And once you have done that, you have made the evaluation, you have made the comparison, you can decide which particular brand to purchase. Fine. And then once you purchase, in the 5th step, you may feel satisfied or you might be dissatisfied. Your expectations may or may not match the actual performance of the brand. Fine. So this is the step that will conclude the purchase decision making. And so the purchase decision making is basically made up of these 5 important steps, right? Now let us start talking about a particular example. Now for example, you are studying in your 6th semester. Many of you have got married. Some of you have your father's money to fall back on, so your father's property to fall back on. But then there are so many people who want to have a good career ahead of themselves, who want to be self-dependent, they want to be able to stand on their own without any support by their parents, they want to have a career of their own, and they want to have a status of their own. So now they would be thinking, now that you are in the 6th semester and the 6th semester is about to come to an end, you might be thinking, what do we do after BBA? Now this is example of problem recognition. You recognize this problem. I have to look for something to do after BBA. Which particular course should I go for, or which particular brand should I go for? Should I go for some brand in Dehradun, some university in Dehradun, or should I study from Pithoragarh only? So this particular need, you start feeling that you need to decide where to pursue your MBA from, and then the second step would be you would start looking for information. and this information will help you make some decision. That is why you are looking for information. Now there are different sources. There are commercial sources to obtain information. For example, the advertisement given by a particular firm, the salespeople of a particular firm. For example, Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management, Delhi, is providing management education service, and they have come up with this ad. So now you have a look at this particular ad. Now there are two ads, so don't get confused. This one is the Chitkara University ad, while this one is the LBSIM ad, right? So they have come up with this ad, and then you can have a look at this ad, then you can go through this particular ad carefully, and this would be an example of how you are collecting information from commercial sources. Commercial sources are those which are sponsored by the marketer. So naturally the LBSIM must be paying for it, or Chitkara University must be paying for this ad. So this is commercial source. Then you have public source. Public source are those sources which do a comparison of all the brands which are there in the market, and they do it for the sake of the public. They do not do it for any other motive. They do it so that the public may be able to make a right call, may be able to make the right decision. Fine. So in that sense, they are less biased. Commercial sources would only talk highly about their own offering, while public sources would generally be less biased. Fine. So I have given you an example of a public source. This is a rating agency, and this rates the different management institutions in the country, right? And this is the rating for the western zone, which means the western part of the country. So this would include parts of Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Rajasthan. So this is what is included in the western part. So they have compared the different management institutes in the western India, and they have come up with their ranking, and Ahmedabad has the topmost ranking, right? So this is an example of a public source. This is a rating agency, right? Many a times newspaper come up with this information, and they are unbiased. So they come up with a article wherein they compare the 4 or 5 different brands without any biases. So that can be an example of a public source. And then you have got online forums. Online forums where you look at what the response of the other customers has been, those who have purchased the service earlier. How have they responded? What has been their experience? So this again is an example of public source. Fine. Then another source that you have access to is the personal source. Personal source could be your friends, relatives, parents, acquaintances, your teachers, somebody whom you know, and they are known as personal sources. For example, this individual here is being provided some information by this individual here. So this is an example of a personal source, right? And now you should be able to understand which source are the customers going to have greater faith on. Commercial, public, or personal. Public source or personal source. Please understand, public source would always be considered to be more reliable than commercial, and personal source would be considered to be the most reliable. Why? Because this person who is telling you something, he does at all not have any concern for any individual benefit. He does not want to give you a wrong advice for his own sake, for his own benefit. So you have the greatest trust on the personal sources. Fine. Naturally, when you have to decide where to go for a party today, don't you ask your friends? And when your friends tell him कि हाँ उधर जाना, वहाँ खाना बहुत अच्छा मिलता है, बहुत बढ़िया सर्विस है और व्यू भी बहुत अच्छा है, so you would go there. So you will have the greatest faith on personal sources, right? Now let's talk about what you do after you have collected information from the commercial, public, and personal sources. You decide which one to purchase by doing a comparison, by making an evaluation of the different alternatives that you have in the market, right? For example, here I have made comparisons between LBSIM here and Chitkara University here, and now I have made this comparison of different criteria. So these criteria that I've used: selection process, job guarantee hai ki nahi hai, cost, how far it is away from my birthplace Pithoragarh. So I'm taking into account all these considerations, right? And then I'm comparing the two brands on these 4 counts. Selection process LBSIM is difficult because you have to score at least 85 to 90 percentile in CAT. Chitkara, it's easy. You don't need to score anything. You go there, pay some money, and you would be given a seat. Job guarantee LBSIM, since again it's an institute among the top 30-40, naturally there is good amount of job guarantee there, but that's not the case with Chitkara. Cost is high, while in Chitkara the cost is very high, and distance, it's not very far from the home, it's in Delhi only. Again, Chitkara is also not far from the home, it's in North India only. So you say that on this particular aspect, both the brands compare equally well, right? So the ultimate decision will be made on how the brands perform on these three counts, and you would be able to understand that probably I might want to go for LBSM. The only problem here is that the selection process is difficult, the job guarantee is really good, and the cost is high, while in case of Chitkara you would have to pay even higher. So in that case, in that way, LBSM, the only issue is the selection process is difficult, so I might want to go for LBSM. Now please understand, this is a very simplified model. You only don't have two brands in the market whenever you decide which particular service to buy. You don't have two different brands. For example, take example of banquet halls. There are so many banquet halls in the market. Again, you don't compare the different brands which are there in the market, only 4 criteria. You might be comparing on 10 criteria, or you might be comparing only just 1 criteria. It depends on you only, right? So the criteria may be different from one individual to the other. Fine. And this is how you make an evaluation, and then you decide to purchase from a particular brand. So you decide that LBSIM is good. So I am going to go for LBSIM. I am going to get my higher education degree for LBSIM. But then you also have to decide other things. Apart from which particular service provider to buy the service from, you have to decide when. Are you going to go for this year, or maybe you are going to wait for the 1 year, next year you are going to go. From where? Are you going to go for online course, or are you going to go for an offline course? And are you going to purchase in cash, or are you going to purchase on credit, udhar pay, right? Or are you going to take loans to make the payment for the LBSIM admissions? So what are you going to do? Cash purchase, credit purchase, or loan, right? So this is how you decide which particular brand to purchase. Not only this, where to purchase from, when to purchase, and these kind of aspects. And once you have made the purchase, now then there would be post-purchase behavior. You might either be very, very dissatisfied with the performance, like this particular individual. So these smileys are basically nothing but they are actually communicating your mood, while this is neutral, and you might be really happy with the performance of a particular offering that you have purchased, the service that you have purchased. You might be really happy about it. For example, you have purchased Airtel and you have recently switched from Vodafone Idea to Airtel. It may so happen that the network is working really fine and you would be really happy, just like this guy. Or it may so happen that the performance is below par. You might feel like this particular individual. So right, so your response would be very, very different cases, and this response would also decide whether you are going to make a repurchase or not. Right? And then not only this, you might also spread some word of mouth. You might say either something good about the brand or something bad about the brand. So you might spread positive as well as negative word of mouth about the brand. So this is how we decide which particular brand to purchase. Fine. Now let us talk about how does a marketer proceed in the market, because this is one topic which is missing in your syllabus, and I think this is very, very important before we start talking about segmentation. We start talking about differentiation and positioning. We should know how does a marketer actually proceed in the marketplace. Now, first thing that he does is he segments the market, right? Why does he segment the market? Generally, one single marketer is unable to serve the whole market. If you talk about Maruti Suzuki, they have a market share of somewhere around 55% in the automobile industry, in the car market in India. But they know that they cannot cater to all kinds of customers, to all the customers in India. There are customers who are looking for extra luxury. They are looking for comfort. So for them, Maruti does not have any offering yet, while there are companies like Mercedes, right, who are offering products for these kind of customers also. So as a marketer, you have to segment the market. You have to divide the market in different segments. Now have a look at here. I have used 2 criteria to divide the market. First is family income, low and high, right? So from here to here, I'll plot the family income from low to high, and from here to here, I'll plot the ambition of the student. How ambitious the student is. Mahatma Kanji kitna hai? This is an example of a psychographic segmentation. Fine, right? And this is the market for higher studies in Pithoragarh, or let's say in Uttarakhand. Now you see this one, this circle, high in family income and high ambition, right? Then this one, low family income and low ambition. This one, high family income but very low ambition. And this one, high ambition but very low family income. Fine. So these are 4 different segments which are there. You can further divide into different other more segments. Fine. Now you have to decide, you have divided the whole market into different segments. Have a look at this. You have to decide which particular market segment to target. So this is what we do in targeting. We segment and then we target which particular segment, or maybe 1 or 2 segments, or maybe more than 1 segment to target. Now you decide which ones to target. You know that this particular segment is being targeted by Harvard Business School, where the family income is also high and the student is really ambitious, really sharp. So that particular person will probably go to Harvard Business School or other such institutes like IITs or IIMs. Why? Because they are looking for these kind of students, this kind of customers only, right? Then you see that very low family income and very low ambition levels. You find that most of the students in the government institute display these 2 characteristics. So this is segment which is being catered by the government colleges. You see in your own college, BA, BSc, BCom, thousands of students take admission every day, every year, and hardly a handful are successful. Fine. So their ambition levels is also low, their family income is also low, so they can always be targeted by other government colleges, so it does not make any sense to target this particular segment. Then there is 3rd segment, high family income but ambition is low, and they are targeted by institutes like Graphic, ERA and Amaprali, right? So these kind of students would join these kind of service providers. So this segment is good one for me, which would be targeted by me, Department of Business Administration at the college, which has low to average family income and high to very high level of ambition. So the level of ambition has to be high to very high. It should not be low, while family income can be somewhere around low to average. Fine. And this is the segment that we are going to target. Now we have decided, we earlier segmented the whole market, and now we have decided which particular segment to focus on depending on our own competencies. And then we start with the positioning, right? Then we position our offering in the mind of the target audience, in the mind of the customers in the target segment, right? So now that we have decided that we would be going for Department of Business Administration, we would be going for those people, those students who have a high level of ambition, though they may not be very rich. Now we can come up with positioning statements for this particular segment. Fine. So with this, we are through with the discussion today. We'll be discussing positioning and differentiation tomorrow. Thank you very much for your time.